Hi everyone, and welcome to video number 23 on Weimar, Germany and the Nazi Party. And this video, ladies and gentlemen, it's all about the impact, the effect of Nazi policies on the youth, on the young children in Germany, 1933 to 1939. Now, let's have a look at my back catalogue of songs that I enjoy. 2002, a band called Busted. That's what I go to school for. Now, why do you go to school? Well, you're probably sitting there thinking, well, because I have to, or my parents might get fined if I don't. But hopefully you will also see there's a value in education to help you get your exams, to help you get a better job in life, and to give you knowledge and understanding about the world in which you live. Maybe that's why we go to school. And of course, the social elements, hopefully to meet lots of people and make lots of friends. There are lots of reasons why we go to school. 1979, Christmas #1, Pink Floyd. We don't need no education. Wow. Well, Hitler wouldn't agree with that, because according to Hitler, children did need an education. But, ladies and gentlemen, a Nazi education. He made a man called Rust the Minister of Education, and this man famously said, "The whole purpose of education is to create Nazis." Yes, Hitler and the Nazi Party wanted to brainwash the young people in Germany to accept their message, to control the minds of the young, so that when they grew, they would already be willing to accept the Nazi message. And that's what this video is about, looking at the two different ways that the Nazis tried to control the minds of the young. The first one is education, actually in schools. What did the Nazis do in schools? And the second way, later in the video, we'll look at Nazi groups that were set up to help control children's mind when they weren't in school, when they were on their leisure time. So there's two elements to this video, ladies and gentlemen. Let's start with education. From the ages of 6 to 14, education was compulsory. Boys and girls went to separate schools. There were just the normal schools, then there were Adolf Hitler schools, then there were order castles, and certain people would be selected to go to these other, better, more Nazi schools, trying to groom them and educate them for a role high up in the Nazi Party. So, education is right at the centre of the Nazi idea of controlling young people's minds. Of course, that then means that they had to control the teachers. Put my old hat on there. There we go. Oh, I'm a teacher again. Not that I ever wore this when I was teaching. Of course not. There we go. The old mortarboard. Now, Hitler realised he had to control the teachers because the teachers are going to control the children. So they set up the Nazi Teachers League. And by 1937, 97% of teachers had joined the Nazi Teachers League. A year before, 1936, 36% of teachers were actually fully fledged members of the Nazi Party. By 1939, over 200,000 teachers had attended Nazi political courses. So he's trying to brainwash the teachers so that they can help brainwash the children. Oh, this is rather uncomfortable today. Let's try that. That's a bit better. If, of course, the teacher didn't go along or agree with this, they would be sacked. In Prussia, that's one part of Germany, the Minister of Education, this man called Rust, he sacked 180 teachers. Control, that's what it was all about. And also, if the children themselves said, oh, that teacher's not teaching me right, the children could complain about the teachers, and then the teachers would be disappeared. and replaced by people willing to go along with the Nazi message. In every single class, the teachers would teach the Hitler salute. They would say Heil Hitler at the start and end of every single lesson. In every classroom there were Nazi posters, there were Nazi flags. Hitler is trying to Nazify education, introduce the Nazi ideals, the Nazi beliefs into every element of the children's education. Textbooks, the books that were used after 1935, they had to be approved by the Nazi Minister of Education. Mein Kampf, Hitler's own book, My Struggle, that became a standard textbook. They're controlling what the children read and what they see. Now let's have a look at the curriculum in general. All the different subjects were twisted to try and show the Nazi ideas. So, for example, when they studied history, it would all be to do with blaming the Jews, blaming the communists, for example, losing World War I and the Treaty of Versailles. It's showing the facts through the eyes of the Nazis. In geography, when they looked at maps, they'd say, look at this country. That's a country that Germany should go and conquer. Lebensraum, because Germans needed the living space, according to the Nazis. Hitler and the Nazis also introduced particularly new subjects, race studies, talking about the superiority of the Aryan race and the inferiority of the Jews, brainwashing the children. Eugenics, selective breeding, the idea telling the girls, do not ever marry a Jew because we want to create pure Aryan children. PE was very important in the Nazi curriculum. 15% of the time in the week was given over to PE, because for the Nazis, they wanted fit, strong, healthy boys for soldiers, and they wanted fit, strong, healthy girls to go and have more children. Science. Only boys did science. The girls, they did domestic science, cooking, household skills. In the boys' science, they were often, for example, there was one lesson where the teacher brought in a gun and showed everybody how to load a gun. Imagine that in a classroom. But that's what was going on in Germany under the Nazis in the 1930s. Finally, mathematics, very important subject. In the maths books, yes, they did the maths, but they set it out in a way which gave the Nazi message. Here's an example of a couple of questions. If the population of Germany was 66 million, and there are 500,000 Jews, what percentage of the population is alien? So they're saying to the children, Jews are aliens, Jews are foreigners, Jews are not proper Germans. Can you see how they're trying to change their mind? Another maths problem. If a plane takes off from Germany with 12 bombs, each bomb weighs 10 kilograms, plus 1,500 kilograms of fuel, the plane flies to Warsaw in Poland, the capital of international Jewry, that's Jews. It bombs Poland, it bombs Warsaw. When it returns from its crusade, notice that word, the plane has got 230 kilos left. What percentage of the weight has been lost? Now, the maths is there, but look at the words. Look at the message. A German plane can go and bomb Warsaw because it's full of Jews, and it's like a crusade, a fight between good and evil, brainwashing children. So can you see? School, education, the curriculum, the textbooks, the teachers, it was all controlled by the Nazis. This Minister of Education, Herr Rust, R-U-S-T. So that's one part of control of the children, the education. Oh, get that off. That's better. But what about when the children were not in school, when they were doing their own thing? Well, Hitler and the Nazis wanted to control that as well. So they set up Nazi groups for the children. Let's take the boys first. Ages 6 to 10, a group called the Little Fellows. Ages 10 to 14, the German young people, Young Volk. Ages 14 to 18, the Hitler Youth. Equally for girls, ages 10 to 14, the Young Girls League. Ages 14 to 18, the League of German Maidens. Ages 18 to 21, voluntary, Faith and Beauty. So they've set up some groups to control, mould, brainwash children when they are not in school. Now, to make sure that people just joined the Nazi groups, as I mentioned in some previous videos, the Nazis banned other groups, particularly the religious groups. The Catholics, the Protestants had their own youth groups. They were banned. From 1936, it became compulsory to join the Hitler Youth. Whether everybody did or not, I'll have a look at in a minute. Now, the Hitler Youth leader, a man called Baldur von Schirach, he sets up camps. And at these camps, weekend or of an evening, at these camps, what went on? Well, there were talks, political training, literally just putting the message of Nazism across to the younger people. And the talks, here's one example. One was entitled, have a guess, The Evil of Jews. Well, there it is, ladies and gentlemen, laid out very clearly, the Nazi message said directly to these young people. As well as the talks, there was a heavy emphasis on physical exercise. Hitler wanted his young people to be very, very fit and strong and healthy. Here's a quote from Hitler, 1933, just as he's taken over as Chancellor of Germany. And he's talking about his plans for the young people. He said, "Weakness must be hammered away. I want a brutal, fearless, cruel youth." Wow. What a message. That was the aim of the Hitler Youth. Therefore, they had very, very big emphasis on stuff like camping, hiking, marching, playing sport, map reading, signalling, weapons training. By 1938, over 1 million children were fully trained in how to fire a rifle. The training was hard, submerged in ice-cold water, jumping over fire. It was all about being brave and being tough. That's what Hitler wanted, because he's got their plans. As we look to the future, we will need soldiers, so let's train our young people now. So the emphasis in the boys' training was all to do with preparation for the army. And in the Hitler Youth, the children, because they were, remember, 14 years of age, they had to swear an oath of loyalty to Hitler. I am willing and ready to give up my life for Adolf Hitler, so help me God. Wow. And just as an aside, towards the end of World War II, 1945, as the German army was retreating back to Berlin, and the Americans, British, French, Russians were all pushing in, many of the German soldiers, of course, were either wounded, captured, or dead. And some of the Hitler Youth, very, very young people, fought on the streets of Berlin right to the last. They had been brainwashed to give their lives for Adolf Hitler. What about the girls? What about their groups? Well, as I said, remember the League of German Maidens. In many ways, it was the same as the boys. They had the same political message about the superiority of the Aryans, the inferiority of the Jews. It was hammered home to them, do not ever marry a Jew. racial purity, or as they called it, racial hygiene, telling them who to marry. They also did the physical stuff, the camping, the marching, the physical fitness, because Hitler thought the healthier these people are, the more likely it is that they'll be able to have lots of children, which is what he wanted. The only real difference between the girls' training and the boys is that the girls did not do the military training. Instead, they're concentrating more on the household skills, cooking, ironing, making the beds, sewing. In other words, they're being prepared for life as a housewife and a mother. So there we see, outside of school as well, the Nazis were trying to control the lives and the thoughts of German youth. Now, just before we finish, let's have a look at the success or the failure of the Nazi attempt here to control the children. Well, let's have a look at the successes. This is from a Nazi point of view, remember. The Nazis would say, yes, it's been a success because by 1939, Hitler Youth membership was 8 million. So they would say, great, we are being able to directly control the minds of 8 million. Many of those people enjoyed the excitement, the physical training. They liked it. Many of those people enjoyed the idea of making friends, the comradeship, the camaraderie. So many of them were very, very keen and they liked the idea. And some of them would then say, I want to join the army, which was Hitler's aim all along. So from a Nazi point of view, they would argue it was successful. What about failures? Again, from a Nazi point of view, yes, 8 million joined, but there were at least maybe 3 million who did not join the Hitler Youth. Not everybody did join, even though, remember, from 1936 it was compulsory. So some people were going against the idea. Some people joined it but hated it. They just went along with it. They were bored by the political talks. It had no effect. It had no impact on them. They did not like marching round doing military drilling. They said this is a waste of time. Some people didn't like being forced to do it, the compulsory nature of it. So from a Nazi point of view, they're not controlling the minds of those people. Therefore, it's a failure. So there is a mixture there between successes and failures. Just before we finish, get my old teacher's hat back on. What sort of GCSE questions could they ask you? Well, here's one. Explain why the lives of young people were changed in Nazi Germany. And they give you 2 clues, 2 ideas. 1, Nazi ideals. 2, education. What would you write about? Well, education, I've given you all the stuff in this video. The curriculum, the teachers. Nazi ideals, racial purity, the idea that we're superior to those other people, according to the Nazis. What else could you mention? We could mention not just education, but the youth groups. You could mention about the Hitler Youth. You could mention about the League of German Maidens and include detail that I've put in this video. Sometimes they might ask a slightly different question. Explain why the Hitler Youth had mixed success. And again, they give you 2 clues. 1, comradeship. 2, the idea that it was compulsory. Now, if you then just went back 2 minutes or so to when I was talking about successes and failures, you could mention those points. Mention both sides, the Hitler successes and the Hitler failures in the Hitler Youth. And that would give you, hopefully, a decent mark. Don't worry, I'll do a few videos on the exam towards the end of this series of videos. So there we see a hugely important part of life in Nazi Germany. Hitler and the Nazis trying to control the lives of young German people. So, what's next? Well, if you remember, Hitler promised to improve people's lives. That's why so many people voted for him. One of the big problems in their lives, just think back to 1932, just before he became Chancellor, there were 6 million Germans unemployed. What was Hitler going to do about that? That's the next video, ladies and gentlemen. The Nazi policies, life in Germany, and unemployment. Coming soon. As ever, I hope it's been useful. Take care now. Speak to you soon. All the best.